Good morning. This is Reverend Tony Boehm. I'm the Unity South Central Ministry Consultant. This morning we're going to discuss second-tier organizational practices. Second-tier organizational practices, these come from a book by Frederick Laloux, Reinventing Organizations, and they are also in the Module 2 Leadership process that we teach in regards to leadership skills, developing leadership skills within your ministry for your board and team leads. I want to talk a little bit about second-tier practices. What do we mean by second-tier practices? I'm speaking of second-tier practices from the standpoint of spiral dynamics and that momentous leap that takes us to the second tier. We know as a collective society we've been working out of the means of first tier consciousness, and we have been working to make those momentous leaps into higher levels of awareness. Well, I see that this is happening. We're finding out more about what does it mean to be in third dimension, fourth dimension, fifth dimensional energies. What does it mean to be in those higher levels of practices where integrity and clarity, intentionality and accountability and transparency and more vulnerability, courageousness, what I like to call conscious neutrality, where conscious neutrality exists, where you are the presence of all is well. So let's talk a little bit about those practices right now for team, for your board, and whether you're the board president, whether you're a board member, whether you're a team lead, team member. So what does second tier consciousness hold as norms for organizational practices? And any of you who have worked with me know that I truly am about best standards of practice. From my nursing career, where I have a master's in nursing and was working with the American Nurses Association to create best standards of practice for nursing, I believe, or whether it has been through Unity Worldwide Ministries, where I developed the best standards of practice for welcoming programs, I believe that best standards of practice help us create our default responses for practices within our systems that desire to lead the way. If you are a team that desires to lead the way, then incorporating these organizational practices will support you. There are capacities and practices that are engaged in that are not self-serving. They always consider what is the highest and best for the ministry, taking me out of the equation even though I'm on the board. Because my job is to hold the highest and best for the organization. So how can we serve, and what is the highest and best for all? So these practices are not socialistic in nature, but they are steeped in service, in trust, and the unity of all and the unification of all for the highest of good. When second-tier consciousness is alive in an organization, its teams are willing to do the following, and I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them, but just know that this leadership training is available for your teams. That when you have these practices alive within your system, these practices of accountability, transparency, they support what I like to call that conscious neutrality, that opportunity to be in the midst of creative tension and still draw upon the higher power, the higher source, the presence within you to bring a sense of calm regardless of what is happening around. In second-tier practices, we don't take things personally. We know that things are happening, things might be said, but we are willing. We have the courage to sit in the midst of discomfort at a 10 and to allow the creative tension to call forth something new and dynamic. And in second-tier practices, personal goals or agendas do not dictate where we want to go, but truly that deep listening to the call of life and sustainability and dynamism for our organization and where it wants to take the team or group. There is a desire for collaboration over control. Many boards do like the fact that they are in control, but and persons on the board like to be a control center, control factor. But in second tier practices, we move into this sense of collaboration. We're collaborating with all levels within the system in order to call forth the highest and best. And that's why with vision, mission, and core values, we bring together the whole community to create vision, mission, and core values so that there is buy-in at the deepest level and not just a board sitting in a room and creating. Same thing with development of a strategic plan. I have an incredibly slick system for creating a strategic plan that can be almost effortless, but it's also inviting the whole of the community into it. In second tier practices, we can give and receive feedback that supports the higher system without fear. Without fear, without taking things personally. It goes back to taking things personally. I accept feedback so that I know where my growing edges are, because in my consciousness, I want to be on the leading edge. And the only way that I can be on the leading edge is as I am willing to stand as the leading edge, and that requires the capacity to receive feedback. It's also the capacity and the willingness to hold crucial conversations. Are you willing to hold crucial conversations, to move out of any type of people-pleasing mode or fear that somebody might get upset, to be courageous enough? That capacity. Courage is the capacity, and vulnerability is the capacity to move forward with courage regardless of outcome. So we move from that idea of generous listening, we move into the idea of generous listening, authentic dialogue, authenticity of who we be and how we speak. And that open dialogue invites all perspectives to be heard. But in hearing all perspectives, friends, you must have mutual agreements. We did a short video on mutual agreements. Mutual agreements establish the grounds upon which we will talk and walk with each other, so that we can then call us each up higher. When we're in these second tier practices and in this conscious neutrality, we're comfortable with the complex, with the ambiguous. We don't have to have all the answers. We can dance in the paradox and allow dancing at the edge of mystery to invite us into deeper questions, not just answers. So we move from a deficit to a strength-based organization, which means we have the strength to look at where our weaknesses are and not just have them as platitudes or sweetness so that nobody gets upset. For me, another big thing in this second tier leadership is that we are risk takers. A person who has ambition but is not ambitious, says Claire Graves. When you are a risk taker, it means you're willing to take the risk for the highest good of all. We find wisdom in emotions, and we know that emotions can show us who we are and where our next growing edge is, versus them being reactionary catalysts for anger and upset. I love the idea, when I'm really in conscious neutrality and practicing that next level, that I can look at what is and find what is interesting versus blaming and making things wrong. And therefore then I'm engaging in self-management through self-observation. And Charles Fillmore, the founder of Unity, says self-observation is the prelude to Christ consciousness. If you can't do honest self-observation, honest self-observation is the prelude to Christ consciousness. If you can't do honest self-observation, you're not growing. Because honest self-observation looks at, ooh, this is interesting. This is an interesting reaction that is arising in me. Not that you triggered or you're the blame, but this is rising in me, and what is it coming to teach me? When we're in this consciousness, this higher level awareness, I like to think of it as fourth and fifth dimensional higher awareness, second tier paradigm, whatever you want to call it. You know there is shared wisdom in the group and you trust it. Every time I go in to do vision, mission, and core values with the group, I am so clear that the wisdom and the answer lives in the group. I am just there to facilitate the process through asking the right questions. And when we ask the right questions, those empowered questions, they invite us to lean into new questions so that we never truly see or believe that we have all of the answers. And one question that gets asked a lot is, how can everybody have equal power? Guess what, friends? It's not about that equal power anymore. It's rather, how can everyone be power-filled? How can everyone be powerful? How can everybody sitting in this boardroom as part of the team, anybody even within the ministry, how can everyone be powerful within this system? Because power is not viewed as a zero-sum game where I have the power and I can take it away from you. Power is about that quality, that faculty of power, that executive power, to know that the group has wisdom, that each of us has the power of our own innate wisdom and can call forth that power to add to the mix, to come to some type of right decision. And we can do this because we're functioning at a higher level of awareness, a higher dimensional awareness, where we know that we are all interconnected. And because of that interconnectedness within that unified field of consciousness, Mr. Fillmore called it substance and the ethers, quantum calls it a unified field of consciousness. We are all interconnected. And the more powerful I become, the more powerful you become. Because it's the capacity for each of us to grow that we add to the capacity for all to grow. And so the more powerfully you advance the organization's mission, the more opportunities will open up for everyone to make contributions to that mission. And so remember that the pool of leadership is through modeling. We have moved from managing to modeling as leaders, to inviting people through modeling to want to grow into higher levels of awareness. And remember, an organization cannot evolve beyond its leadership stage of development. An organization cannot evolve beyond its leadership stage of development. So if you're still sitting in lack of trust of each other, lack of willingness to make a commitment, then the evolution of your ministry will be stinted. So in this consciousness, I want to end with this, in this consciousness of second tier, in what I like to call fourth and fifth dimensional awareness also, know that authenticity, trust, being willing to sit in the unknown, to dance at the edge of mystery with the questions, allowing more questions to be called forth, but the capacity to make decisions when the question has been discussed enough, knowing that you are about sacred service, that this is about the highest good for all, and holding unwavering standards of excellence. Those, friends, are what will move your organization forward. God bless you all. May the universal impulse thrill through every cell of your body and call you higher, and may you say yes. This is Reverend Tony Boehm, Unity South Century Ministry Consultant. My number is 816-304-3044, 816-304-3044. You can reach me at revtboehm@aol.com or at my website, tonyboehm.com, and that's Tony with an I, tonyboehm.com. Have a great day.